Okay, good morning all of you. So today our topic is separation of substances. As you all know what is separation, to separate the things when you are having two or more substances together, to separate them, that is called separation of substances. Okay, so we will start with this chapter today, what is separation of substances. Now in your everyday life you have noticed so many methods of separation, right? For example, when you are separating tea from the tea leaves, and this is an example. For example, the tea leaves are separated from the liquid. The tea leaves are separated from the liquid with a strainer while preparing tea. Okay. So this is an example of separation. Next is separation of substances. Now there are some examples of separation in your daily life. First is separating stone from rice and grains. Have you ever seen that your parents bring some rice and types of cereals, and what your mother do? She just separate the stones and unwanted materials from that mixture. So that is an example of separation of substances. Next is churning of milk or curd to remove butter. Have you ever seen how to separate butter from a milk, or from remove butter from the milk? That is also part of separation. Next is remove chilies from cooked poha. Third is remove husk from grain seeds. Fifth, remove tea leaves from tea. There are so many examples you can take of separation of substances. Now next is, why do we separate substances? What is the need to separate substances? What is the use? Why we used to do this? First is, what is the separation process? First is, if we talk separation process. Second is purpose for which we do the separation. And third, what do we do with the separated components? First one, if we talk about separating stones from rice. If we talk about separating stones from rice, then what is the purpose of doing that? To separate two different but useful components. Means, for example, there is a rice and stone mixed together. What you will do, you will just remove that stones because that is not needed. Next is we throw the solid components. For example, as I told you, stones. If there is a mixture of stones, what you will do, you will separate the stones from the mixture. Second is churning milk to obtain butter. How will you get butter from a milk? To remove non-useful components. What is the purpose? To remove non-useful components from the mixture, and we throw away the impurities which is there in the butter. What we do, we just remove them. We used to take out the impurities from that component. Third is separating tea leaves. What is the use of separating tea leaves? Means to remove impurities or harmful components. Okay, means what you will do to separate that tea leaves are the harmful components, and we use both the components. For that we are adding tea leaves to get tea. Okay, so that's why we are, but after that we will remove the impurities. That means to remove tea leaves from that liquid. Now next, what is the need of separating the substances? The reasons of separating the substances is to, first is to separate two different but useful components from the mixture. First one is to separate two different, means, for example, as I have given you, rice and stones. So first one, we have to remove stones from that. Rice is a useful component and stones are the non-useful components. Second is to remove non-useful components from the mixtures. The stone is the non-useful component from that mixture. And third, to remove impurities and harmful substances from a mixture. These are the 3 points that what is the use of, or what is the need to separate the substances. Okay, need for separation of substances. What is the need of the substances to be separated? May be particles of different sizes and material. These may be solid, liquid, or even gases. Obviously there are 3 states from which you can separate the things of different size and material. How will you differentiate that? That you have to remove different useful component, non-useful component from that. How will you recognize? By their size, by their shape, by their color. Okay. So next is, so how do we separate mixed substances mixed together if they have so different properties? First one is, we use different methods. We use different methods of separation and utilize the point of difference between a component and mixture. Means, wait a minute. Like I have told you, so these points on your class already, that what there are different types of methods for different purpose. Hand picking, threshing, winnowing, sieving, evaporation, sedimentation, decantation and filtration. These are the different methods that we will discuss in this chapter. First is hand picking. Hand picking is basically the simplest method of separation by which you can take out the unwanted material by using of your hands, or used basically in your homes only. For example, it is the simplest method of separation of substances for commonly used in our homes. First is, 2 points to keep in mind. First is, this method is used when the quantity of impurities or the unwanted substances is small. Means you can use this method while the substance or the quantity of the things are small. Then only you can use this method. Second is, it is also important to note that the shape, size and color of an unwanted material is different from that of a useful material. What you have to keep in mind, it is important that useful components are completely different from the non-useful component in terms of their shape, in terms of their size, color and their unwanted material. For example, pebbles, broken grains and insects are separated from rice and pulses by hand picking only, because they are in a small quantity. So that means we can use this method, hand picking. Next is, this is an example. Means when you are wheat or rice, any cereals, you can use this method to separate small stones, insects. For that you can use this method, hand picking. But if it in a large quantity, it is not possible to use your hand for the separation. Next is, what is threshing? Threshing is a method in which grain seeds are separated from the harvested stalks by beating it on a hard surface. Means what you have to do, you have to beat the stalk. Now what is a stalk? Stalk means that complete pile of a wheat or rice. Have you ever seen a complete pile of a wheat and rice? When you take it and beat it on a hard surface, you have to beat it on a hard surface. By that, what you will observe, that the wheat grains will automatically get separated from that stalk. Why we use this method? Because hand picking is not possible for us to separate a single grain from a wheat or from the stalk of a wheat or a rice. So that's why we use this threshing method, by which what we do, we beat that stalk of a rice or cereal on a hard surface. Now threshing is of 3 different types: manual threshing, threshing by animals and threshing machine. Now what is manual threshing? Manual threshing means when the quantity is very small. Means when the quantity is in a small, threshing is done manually. Small bundles of harvested stock are threshed on a hard surface. This helps in separating the grains. Next is threshing by animals. For larger quantity, threshing is done in the traditional way by using animals. Threshing by animals means for larger quantity, threshing is done in the traditional way by using animals. For this, stalks are spread around a pole. Separate bullocks are tied to the pole and are made to walk over the harvested stalk. Trampling by hooves of animals help in separating grains. So, and third is threshing by machine. Recently, threshing machine is called basically thresher. Means threshing machine means when recently the threshing machine are used for the purpose. It can be powered by either a diesel engine or an electric motor. It helps in saving time as well as labor. So these are the 3 basic method by which you can use the threshing. First is manual threshing, which is basically done by your hands. Second is by animals. We have to tie our piles to the animals' back and they will just easily separate it because by using the animals. And third one is with the help of a thresher. The machine is called thresher, by which you can in that basically diesel is used or electric motor is used, and it is a time saving and labor saving method. This is a picture of threshing. means you have to beat a complete stalk of wheat on a hard surface. This is how this is useful for you separate a large quantity of grains. Next is threshing examples. This is how threshing by animals and threshing by machines. Next is winnowing. Winnowing is an agriculture. First topic we have done that what is a hand picking. Second, threshing. Now winnowing. Winnowing is an agricultural method. Winnowing is an agricultural method developed by ancient culture for separating grains from chaff, or you can say piles or stalk. It is also used to remove weevils or other pests for stored grains. Basically, it is used. Winnowing is used to separate heavier substance of the components from a mixture by wind or blowing wind. If you ever seen that how you will separate the husk means the cover, you can say the cover of a grain. When you have to remove the cover of the grain from the stalk, so what you will do, you will just blow it on a air. What will happen? The lighter substance is the cover of that grain. Okay, so that cover of the grain you will remove with the help of the air only. Okay, the cover, that heavy lighter substance will make a heap, and the heavier substance will make a heap. So that process is called winnowing. So this is used to separate heavier and lighter substances by blowing wind or by blowing air. This method is commonly used by farmers to separate lighter husk particles from heavier seeds of grains. Now husk particles are carried away by the wind. The seeds of grain get separated or form a heap near the platform for winnowing. The separated husk is used for many purposes such as fodder for cattle. Now the cover of the leaves, as I told you, what is winnowing? This is to separate the heavier and lighter substances. Now what is the use of that fodder? That lighter substance is useless for us, but we can use this as a fodder for cattle. For example, for cow, for horses, they eat them. They use this as a fodder only. Now concept behind winnowing. This is how we have to pour it gently on a air. What will happen? Because of the blowing wind, the lighter substance will make a small heap and the heavier substance will come there. And this lighter substance is used as a fodder for your cattle. This is how you can see over here. This is the lighter substance. Because of the blowing wind, it is making a heap, and this is the heavier substance which is for our use, and this is for the kettles, you can say, or this is an unuseful component for yours. Now fourth is sieving. Fourth one is sieving or shifter. Shifter is another word for sieve. It is a device for which of separating wanted elements from unwanted material by passing the mixture through, typically used for the woven screen such as a mesh or net. The basis of separation in the different size and shape of particles. For example, the strainer, which we basically use to strain tea, that is act as a sieve only. That is a sieve which is used to separate the unwanted material, means bigger material, bigger things from the leaves. And the strainer is act as a sieve only. Now sieving is a very simple, convenient and time-saving process through which particles of varying sizes can be separated from each other with the help of a sieve. Now sieve, for example, I have given you, if you have not seen that, this is an example which we use in our daily life, that is a tea. If we use tea, we used to drain the tea from the strainer. So that strainer is a sieve, act as a sieve, and this is the very convenient and time-saving method, means by which the particle of varying size can be separated from each other with the help of a sieve. A sieve is nothing but a simple device with small pores. In a strainer also there are small pores which helps to separate the unwanted material in it, which allow finer material like flour to pass through them without leaving behind any impurities it might contain on the top of a sieve. So this is a sieve. The clear or fine particle will go up, down, and the unwanted material will stay on the sieve. when have you ever seen constructing a building, that time also this is act as a sieve. Next is evaporation. What is evaporation? Evaporation is the process of converting liquid into gas or vapor by increasing the temperature or pressure of a liquid. What is evaporation? Evaporation is the process of changing the liquid into water or water vapor. When you are changing the liquid, that is a water, into a steam, that is a water vapor, by increasing the temperature of it, that process is called evaporation. Now the process is often used to separate salt from the salt water or salty sea water. Sea water has a number of salt present in it. Now shallow pits called evaporation ponds are constructed and salt water is allowed to stand in these. After some time the water gets evaporated, leaving behind the salt. Basically the evaporation is used to separate the salt from the lake. Now as you all know, there is a salty water present on a lakes or a sea, so which process is used to get salt, that process is called evaporation. Now common salt is prepared from this mixture upon further purification. You cannot take that salt directly. You have there is a long process, which process is called purification. By that you will get a common salt. Now this is how salt in shallow pits. This is how a salt will get separated from lakes or other like sea water. Or this is how it makes a shallow pits and gets separated from the salt water. Fifth is condensation. Now what is condensation? Condensation is the process of converting the gas, means this is the opposite of evaporation, means when you are converting the steam into water. That process is called condensation, by decreasing the temperature or pressure of the liquid. Condensation is the change of a physical state of matter from gas phase into liquid phase, and in the reverse of evaporation. The word often refers to as a water cycle. This is the process of water cycle. As you can, if you can say, what is a water cycle? If we talk about air, now clouds are the form of the water vapor only, which goes upward and forms a cloud. It is a steam, that is a form of steam only, so that process is called evaporation. Now coming of rain, how rain comes when the temperature decreases, the water steam, that steam means cloud gets melted and that steam converted into water, so that shows the condensation process, and that process is called water cycle only. Now evaporation and condensation often takes place together. Now evaporation and condensation taking place simultaneously is called distillation. This is how you can see the water cycle. Right now only I have explained. This is a water which will get evaporated because of the sun. After that converted into cloud, and then cloud when the temperature decreases, it will again come in a form of water only. Next is sedimentation. What is sedimentation? Sedimentation can be defined as a process through which dirt and other heavier particles in a mixture settle at the bottom of a vessel. When water is added to it, when the heavier component in a mixture settles after water is added to it, the process is called sedimentation. Now what is sedimentation? I have told you that for example, what is sedimentation? For example, when you are mixing an insoluble substances in a water and it will get settled down at the bottom of a jar or a vessel, that is called sedimentation. For example, sedimentation can be defined as the process through which dirt and other heavier particles in a mixture settle at the bottom of a vessel. As I told you that unwanted materials will get settled at the bottom of a vessel when water is added to it. Now when the heavier components of a mixture is in a mixture settles after water, that process is called sedimentation. When the dirt and the dust particles have settled, the clear water which forms the upper layer is moved in a different container, and the dirt and the dust is done away with. This technique can also be used to separate two liquids which are not mixed with each other, and they are called immiscible liquid. What are miscible liquids and what are immiscible liquids? When two liquids, if we talk about the liquids which is not soluble in water, for example oil is a liquid which is not soluble in water, so that is a miscible liquid, that is a immiscible liquid. If we talk about glycerin can easily mix with the water, so that is a miscible liquid. When we talk about two liquids which can completely mix with each other, that are called miscible liquids. And if we talk about solids. So that process, when the insoluble substance do not get mixed with the water, so that will get settled down at the bottom. That is called sedimentation. And to separate the immiscible liquid from the, when liquids do not get mixed with each other, is called immiscible liquid, and that is called decantation. You can see over here, particles suspended in water. When you are mixing it with the water which is not soluble in water, will get settled down at the bottom, and that process is called sedimentation. These are the insoluble particles which are do not mix with the water, which will get settled down at the bottom. So that process is called sedimentation process. Now what is decantation? Decantation is a process of the separation of mixtures by removing water from a mixture. By removing water from a mixture, where sedimentation has already occurred by tittling the beaker and slowly pouring out the liquid. Now, as I told you, when you will separate the when you are separating the liquids, means two liquids, when you are separating that liquid, that is called, with the help of a strainer only, you can easily separate two different materials. So that is a decantation. Now decantation can be defined as a technique through which immiscible liquids are get separated from each other. As I told you, what are immiscible liquid? When two liquids mix together and they do not get mixed with each other, they are called immiscible liquids. So the method to separate two immiscible liquids are used as a decantation, in which we use decantation method. For example, take a case of oil and water. Right now only I have given you an example. What is oil? Oil is a liquid, water is also liquid. So now these are the example of two immiscible liquid. Once we pour oil in water, oil forms the upper layer of water and can be easily separated by gently pouring the mixture in another container till all the oil has been removed. Sometimes smaller dirt particles get carried along with the water with the process of decantation, which needs in the further remove. This can be achieved through the process of filtration. After this we will discuss on our next class. I hope you all will understand these processes. After this we will discuss on our next class on next Thursday.